the console that revolutionized gaming in the 80s. The Nintendo Entertainment System. If you're looking to add the NES to your retro gaming collection, or you're just starting your retro gaming collection, this video is for you. A brief history. By 1983, the gaming industry had plummeted due to the oversaturation in the gaming market, with the Atari 2600, the Intellivision, and the ColecoVision added with the lack of quality control, led to consumer disappointment and a decline in trust in the gaming industry. In 1985, Nintendo came along and revitalized the industry.
Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with Rob, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
Now, I'll have to make a whole separate video on the origin of Nintendo and take a deeper dive into the gaming crash of '83. Now, let's move on to display. When developing games, developers had CRT displays in mind. It would be quite a while before LCD and OLED. CRTs are getting harder and harder to find, and depending on the area you live in, it could be hard to find a good deal. It took me forever to find a good deal. Unfortunately, the people selling them know what they're worth. Now, I'm not saying you can't find a free one out in somebody's front yard, but it is much more rare for that to happen, unfortunately. A CRT, in my opinion, is the best way to experience these games if you can get your hands on one. Modern displays, when hooked up directly, are not only ugly, but can create input lag. And trust me, with some of these games, you'll want every millisecond possible. Within the last few years, more and more proper upscalers have become available. Although I have no experience with these, from what I've heard, the RetroTink is the best plug-and-play you can get, while the OSSC requires more tinkering. One more thing before we move on, stay away from these AV to HDMI adapters. They are made for VCRs and not retro games. RetroRGB has a great video detailing these, and I highly recommend watching it. Now, on to games. The NES isn't the most wallet-friendly to collect for. While your Super Mario Bros. Can be inexpensive, your Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and some Mega Man games can cost a pretty penny. Hell, some loose cartridges cost damn near what I paid for Contra Complete in Box. Hopefully, the retro game craze will settle down and prices will go back down. I would like to point out some games for people who have never played an NES before that they should look out for, and if you pick them up, you're in for a good time. Firstly, we have River City Ransom. This beat 'em up with a friend is a blast to play. Next, we have Super Mario Bros. 3. Although you can't go wrong with any of the Super Mario Bros. On the NES, most people believe this is the best NES Mario. Lastly, we have Contra. Although a little bit harder out of the games I've listed, with a friend, this is a good 2D shooter. Let's talk accessories. The only two I can speak on are the NES Advantage and the Zapper. Both are pretty inexpensive. The NES Advantage released in 1987 and brings the arcade to you with the joystick and the buttons. I think it's perfect for games like Contra and Double Dragon. The turbo feature can be a hit or miss, but I think it can take games that you've played hundreds of times and make them feel new again, and it can make some games easier. Luckily, this is relatively easy to find and can cost up to $25. The original Zapper, although easy to find and relatively cheap, only works on CRTs. The Zapper released in 1985 and is a great accessory to have if you have games like Duck Hunt. Maintenance and upkeep. The NES is over 40 years old, and I've had mine for almost a year. Luckily, I haven't had too many issues. The main issue I see when it comes to maintenance for the NES is the 72 pin connector. I had to take mine to the retro store and let them boil the pin connectors. There is a great alternative called the Nintendo Drawer that seems really reliable. Macho Nacho has a great video detailing this, and I highly recommend watching it. Now, when it comes to cleaning your games, please do not blow into the games. Take rubbing alcohol, 70% or higher, and clean your games that way. You can get a pack of these dust covers for relatively cheap, and I highly recommend using them. A side note, the NES top loader is reliable, and if you can get over how ugly this thing looks, it's not a bad option. Closing statement. The NES is a cool console to collect for, with okay game prices and pretty cool accessories. I don't know if it's the 8-bit style or the cartridges that make me love collecting for the system, but it's a fun addition to add if you have a retro collection or are looking to start one. Next, I'll do the Super Nintendo. I will also have links to any products mentioned in this video or video references down in the description.